Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni moliwanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Himalaya, Ghana, Stitcher Radio, Podcast Addict, wherever you get your podcasts. Our guest today is Linda Wu. She is here to celebrate her debut picture book. It's called Ava's Triumph. Before we invite Linda into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by The Adventures of Harry and Friends, the wonderful picture book series by Sarah Tucker. Hey, does your child dream of becoming a ninja? Harry's first martial arts lesson teaches kids that martial arts isn't about fighting, but about self-control and focus. It's a really, really wonderful book, and it's a perfect addition to any family library. All of the books in this wonderful series inspire kids' imagination and prepare them for real life's challenges. Find out more today. Go to adventuresofharryandfriends.com. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is also brought to you by the secret science of sports, the math, physics, and mechanical engineering behind every grand slam, triple axel, and penalty kick, written by our dean of all things STEM and STEAM, Jennifer Swanson. Hey, did you ever wonder why a football spiral? Did you ever think, how do some athletes jump so high? Well, the answer is science. The secret science of sports helps kids better understand concepts of science, technology, engineering, and math through the sports they love to play and watch. Every sport from baseball to basketball, football to soccer, to wrestling, tennis, and lacrosse involves a bit of science, technology, engineering, and math. You can't throw a ball without Newton's law of motion, and you can't calculate a player's statistics without math. You're going to ignite your kids' interest in STEM and STEAM with the secret science of sports, the math, physics, and mechanical engineering behind every grand slam, triple action, and penalty kick, written by our dean of all things STEM and STEAM, Jennifer Swanson. Get your copy today at Amazon. Join us right now from San Francisco. Our guest is here today to celebrate her debut picture book. It's called Ava's Triumph. Please welcome to the show, Linda Wu. Hey, Linda, how are you?
Hi there. Thank you very much for your enthusiastic introduction.
Well, I'm enthusiastic because I can't wait for you to tell us all about Ava's Triumph.
Oh, thank you. We're so excited about it. Yeah, this is our first debut, right? But we're not book authors, but we decided to do this incredible collaboration, and we're so happy about the results.
Now, when you mention we, you're talking about you and your illustrator. Let's give her a shout out.
Mary Miller. She's my darling co-collaborator, co-creator, co-partner in crime. So she's the artist. She's the one who has developed all of these amazing characters and the sets for the book.
Before we get into what the story is all about, you were sharing with me that you're in tech, which obviously keeps you busy, and that you've dabbled in writing, but writing for adults and writing textbooks.
Right.
What was it that led you to creating a picture book?
So Mary says that it's because I had spent that summer before we started the book in France. I was very lucky to go with my family, and I was on this vacation high. We were in Nancy, where it's the home of Art Nouveau, and I was just coming back doing a lot of photography, and when I came back, I thought, okay, what am I going to do next? I was in between jobs or looking to work again in a different position. In product management. And she was also at a time where she was figuring out what to do. She was creating constantly. She's always building different, with wool felt, different characters, but she didn't have a real purpose for what she was building them for or creating them for. So we thought, why don't we just do a little something together? It'll be fun. And I was more in technology, but I wanted to get onto the creative side. So like things like Adobe and InDesign and photography. So it was just this thought that, why don't we try to do something together? But we were only going to think about something very small. I thought, okay, let's just do a counting book or something like this, because I had this book that I have it here. I thought, we could just do a cute little counting book, and we could do something with the creations that you have. But one thing led to another, and after I guess about a month or two, we were hooked, and we thought, okay, we got to do this for real. So,
well, it's really, really neat, and when we think of picture books, we typically think of a book with an illustration, a painting, something made with digital graphics. But you created physical scenes and sets and photographed them for the book. Am I right about that?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
Mary had been trying to put together some scenes with her creatures, but it was just something she did for fun. And we thought that we could put together an actual story with scenes. We didn't really have an idea initially, honestly. We decided, okay, there's this wonderful quote, and I love to mention it because she's a bit of an idol of mine, but her name is Maria Mirzakhani, and she was a mathematician who passed away in 2017 because of cancer. But she talks about these mathematical proofs. And she says, when she's trying to figure these things out, it's like being in a jungle, and you have no idea how to get out, but you have to use everything that you know. And you have to somehow figure out how you're going to get out. You have to be creative. You have to work hard, and all of these things in order to get out of that jungle. And so that was Mary and me. We decided on this big idea of doing a book together. And then we just had to figure out, okay, how do we start? We've never written a book before, but many others have written amazing books. And so we scoured all the Caldecott winners. We got all these books from the library. We pulled out the ones that we loved as kids. And then my daughter too, the ones that we were reading. I loved Mo Willems, and I loved Knuffle Bunny series. It was that was one of my favorites. Llama Red Pajama, Frederick by Leo Leone. These favorites of ours, and we thought, okay, so we'll learn from them, and we'll figure out how to write it. And so that's sort of the start of it. And we talked about themes. We talked about what was going on in our world. We talked about what we liked. And we knew that it would be about art just because Mary worked in fine arts. So that was sort of the beginning of the theme, that, we would have a character who was an artist. And why bunnies? Well, since I was thinking counting book, I was thinking, okay, we need a lot of whatever we're going to create. So, what do you have the most of? And she says, well, I have a lot of lambs and I have a lot of bunnies. So we put them behind the camera, and it turned out that the bunnies were a lot more expressive because of their ears. Mm-hmm. So we went with the bunnies. Yeah.
What a neat and unique process. I have to tell you, this is the first, you're the first author that's described this type of creative process. First off, I love that you went to the classics and you said, well, we'll learn from the experts, the people who are winning awards. And that really makes a lot of sense. I oftentimes will make analogies to sports because that's kind of who I was growing up. And it's like, you want to learn how to play basketball. You watch video of Bird and Kobe and Magic and all the greats, and you try to emulate them. So what a smart, intelligent way to begin. I love that.
Thank you very much. Yeah. We think it worked. It worked. At least it really provided this incredible brainstorm, this surge of creativity in us.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's what happens is that you're exposing yourself to these words, and they're very different, and you're not looking to copy or plagiarize. You're just looking for some inspiration.
That's right.
And a lot of times just kind of swimming around in a sea or a pool filled with words and story by
images.
And images.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Really smart. I'm going to have to fill my pool up with children's books, I think.
Yeah. The other thing that we did is there were so many things that we came across that we loved. And we really tried to keep it positive. Between the two of us too. So we had heard about this technique that Disney had used when he was creating a new project, and he had different parts of the room designated for different kinds of brainstorming. And in one section of the room, there would be the three different places were the dreamer, the critic, and the realist. And what we decided to do is just to be in that dreamer room. And so if we tossed out an idea, we would just go with it and let it fly and give it a little air and give it wings. And I think that really helped us stay optimistic about what we wanted to do and to really flesh out in a very positive way things that could be done around each other's ideas.
Now, was it especially difficult for you being in the world of tech and being in this kind of, I'm not dreaming here, I'm making sure these things are working right. Was it a big stretch for you to kind of shift your mind and to get into that creative space?
I think I've never thought about that, but I think it's true. I am quite grounded in being sure that I can pull off what I plan. But I think it helped that I had a little girl. I have a little girl. She's a little bit older now. But she gave me a sense of the jubilant, a sense of the sparkly, to keep me in the mindset of what delights children. And then the other thing definitely is that while tech made things sometimes more difficult because I would dive into the details to a great extent, it also gave me a process. And it's a process that we borrowed from for creating Ava, a process with which if we hadn't we probably wouldn't have been able to finish. It's called the Agile development process, and it's development over short sprints, 2-week cycles or 3-week cycles. And what you do is you try not to go sequentially and then do each one perfectly before you move on to the next part of the story. What you do is you do something end to end, really quick. It's like back of the napkin kind of calculation, or just a very quick and dirty. And from that, you decide whether your idea is going to work or not. And then you keep iterating like that until, and you discover what is not going to work, or you discover new ideas in the process, or it gives you time for Mary to be able to create some of the things that she made, because some of them also were prototyping and created iteratively as well. So that iterative process really helped our design process.
So were you sitting down and taking each spread as a chunk? Okay, how's it going to begin, and how's it going to end, and what's the cliffhanger? I don't know if you have any cliffhangers, but So we had a story just in narrative form in a doc, and we thought, okay, so if we go with the story, these are the different story scenes that we would have to make. And then we decided, okay, so if we wanted to create a story, what's the minimal? And this is the other aspect of tech, which is they call something MVP, the minimal viable product. What's the least that you need in order to make this thing or whatever you're making work? And we came up with the idea that there are three scenes that we absolutely had to have in order to make the story. And it was the original, the painting scene, and then I don't want to give things away, but then the terrible thing that happens, and then the resolution, right? So without
those 3 scenes, we wouldn't be able to tell the story. So we focused on those 3. And then as we improved on those 3 scenes, each time we kept adding other scenes that could supplement those 3 scenes. That's kind of how we did it.
That's neat. That's it. And I really, if there are any authors out there that are listening, I think taking that idea of what's the minimum that we need, because there's an awful lot of books that come across our desks that are just too much. They're just way too much. And I'll tell you, my beautiful wife taught for 34 years, and a lot of times I will say, what do you think about this book? And she'll open it up, and she'll make a judgment. There's too many words. Just looking at the white, how much white space is. And she knows my kids, second graders, first graders, kindergarten, there's too much here.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So, what we did was we thought, could we get away with a picture book that didn't have any words at all? And so we imagined it and we realized, no, this scene, you just got to have some words here. And this scene, we need something here too. So we thought, we can't just have words for 2 pages. It would sort of interrupt and make the flow odd. So we decided, okay, we will have words, but let's use the least number of words we can and the least amount of. I think this is what I have heard from other people who have read the book to their kids and teachers who have read the book, that what they appreciate a lot about the book, because we leave it for the kids and the teacher or the parent to do all of the describing. Mm-hmm. We never describe anything in the pictures because they can look at it and describe it for themselves.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? We never give them the whys, really. She bursts into tears, but we don't exactly explain. We never say why she does that. We show the pictures, and they are the ones who the readers and the kids are the ones that describe, oh, well, she's crying because, or she's going to do this, or so the less is more. It really worked for us too.
Yeah. One of the things that we really encourage families to do is with any book is to take a picture walk through a book, preferably before you read it. Cover the words and just kind of go through and let your kids imagine, what do you think is going on? Who do you think this character is? And just experience it in that way. If it's a good book, parents, you're going to read it about 4,000 times with your kids, and you're going to want to do it differently. And this is a great way to do it. Sit down and take that picture walk. It's fun because it's really kid-led.
Yes,
the kids are really able to take control and go, this is what I think is going to happen, and tell you the story.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I mean, they could role play the whole book themselves, and it comes from them, and for developing their communication, developing their ideas, and all of these things. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, in just general, it's also immediately I think of, that's what we try to teach our kids to do as a pre-reading strategy, to sort of get out of a book what we want them to get out of. So it's a great idea to do that.
One of the things that I noticed in the notes that you sent over in preparation for the interview is that you said Ava's triumph is prosocial.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
So while we were writing the book and putting it together, there were some aspects of the book that we weren't quite sure about. And that's like the dialogue or, some of the things that Ava says. And at the time, there were a lot of things going on. There's always discussion with parents about so-and-so's bullying so-and-so, and there's a lot of aggression that happens in the playground. So that was very top of mind. So I know initially we thought maybe we would speak to that a little bit and sort of help Ava be proactive in some way with the people who had the soccer ball, with the other bunnies who had the soccer ball. But at the time I was also reading this wonderful book called Nurture Shock by Poe Bronson and Ashley Merriman. It's I think dated now, 2009.
Okay.
Or something. Actually, I'm not sure. But anyway, I was reading it at the time. And there was this one chapter in there. It's called Plays Well with Others. And in this book, in this chapter, and by the way, just in general, each of the chapters in the book addresses some kind of idea regarding parenting, and it's then they explain and describe through talking about a study, a scientific study, why that myth is wrong. And in this case, the study was about preschooler aggression behavior and the effects of media. Mm-hmm. And one would assume that if you have educational programming, the outcome would be kids who are less likely to be aggressive in the playground and be mean, right? And then also to be nicer, kinder and caring and all of these things. And so what they did was they conducted the study, and they discovered, much to their amazement, that with educational programming, the kids, the effect on aggression was quite extreme, but not in the way you would expect it to be. They actually exhibited more relational aggression, more verbal aggression than had kids not watch educational programming. And so, and then they discuss why, right? So, and the why is that a lot of times preschoolers don't connect the learning elements of the story to the negativity. Mm-hmm. So let me rephrase that. They basically they learn in the story. There's usually a buildup of someone being naughty and saying bad things, and then the behavior is corrected, and then they all make up and they all become kind, and there's a happy ending. Well, the little kids, when they're 2 or 3 or 4, they remember all of it, right? And they remember the words, the nasty words that the police said, or they remember the bad things as much as they did the good things. So they have this new vocabulary to express aggression by reading some of these books. Right? So we thought, okay, you know what? We'll take anything negative out of it. We just want this to be entirely prosocial. And it even affected things like, in Ava's studio, we had initially written Ava at work, do not disturb, things like that. Mm-hmm. We got rid of all of that because we wanted it to be an example of positive behavior, prosocial behavior, things that if they remember, they'll be able to use, and all the things that they will remember will be positive.
Interesting. That's really fascinating. For a minute there, I was going to tell you I was really lucky. I was raised on the Three Stooges, but at the end you kind of blew that out of the water.
Well, so maybe when you're older, it is funny though. Some things are so funny when they're being, not so nice. But yeah, anyway, for these kids, there are great books out there. And my daughter would always love that scene. That was just the killer scene, right? Mm-hmm. The one that was just so offensive. So we love those books too. But we thought for our book, for this very young set, let's just make it all prosocial.
Yeah. Well, I like that. And it certainly makes a lot of sense. And especially if you're talking to kids, I don't believe I was watching the Three Stooges at 2 and 3 years old. I don't think we had TV when I was 2 and 3 years old. But, when you're talking about little kids and they don't necessarily, as you were saying, make the connection. Well, this is bad behavior and this is good behavior. And so if you're sharing with them a story or a book that is just really, as you say, pro-social, positive, all positive interactions, they're going to walk away with those lessons.
Yeah. I think so, and I think it makes them feel good. Mm-hmm. They like to reread the story, and that's the one very consistent thing that we hear is that once they read it, they're like, again, I want to read it again, or they ask to read it the next day as well. I think it's a feel-good story for them, a feel-good one, and one of triumph where they can be really happy for the heroine.
Yeah. Well, certainly the pictures in the book are soothing. I think they're absolutely beautiful. They're works of art. And I'm curious, now that you've had this experience, are you hooked? Are we going to see more picture books from this collaboration?
So we have tried, we've dabbled in it, and it's really hard. You know, you go through something that was just such a wonderful experience and a wonderful collaboration, and it feels so satisfying. And then you look back and you think, okay, so what did we do that made it the success that we felt it was? And you start to try to put down a formula. Mm-hmm. And it's not a formula, right? You know, a good work, a good piece of art, or a good story, or a good play. All of these things. We try to make it into, or even a startup. We try to make it into a formula. We even use the same people, right? Or we use the same, team. But there's just this sort of magic that needs to be there too, and. Maybe we'll find that. Maybe I need to take another vacation to France over the summer.
It's great.
And take Mary with me.
Absolutely. Go all around the world. I mean, that. Well, I love it. I think it's wonderful. And this has been a fascinating conversation. We've heard a lot of authors have come on and said, well, this book was inspired by my kid. And, my kid did this and my kid did that, and I wrote it down. And there's nothing wrong with those stories, but this is really different. And I think it can give authors, aspiring authors, and even families something to think about. Like, let's sit down and let's create something together. And what's the minimum that we need to kind of tell the story? And do we want to draw pictures, or do we want to take pictures of our dolls, or the dolls that we make, and kind of create our own book?
Yes.
And we're living in an age where that's possible.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't have to publish 50,000 of them, but you can get 5 printed really easy to share with your family and to have that keepsake for your kids. Yes. I think we just got this review back from Busy Learning, and that's one thing that she mentioned that I didn't quite think about too, which is that, wow, this book makes you want to create something. Mm-hmm. You're going to want to put scenes together, and her little daughter was wanting to make scenes and take pictures and design things for the levy. It's a book about a story, but because it's a photography book where the behind the scenes is so apparent, someone is creating these things, that is with you at each page. And then at the end, we do show a picture of me behind the camera and Mary creating things. So it's also that wonderful motivation to want to do it yourself. Yeah. So neat. But Linda, where can people go to find out more about Ava's Triumph and find out more about you? They can go to avastriumph.com. We have a little about. We have a link to our publishers, Nine Wise Publishing, and that's where you can pre-order the book. And then we also have on that Ava's Triumph website, we have a blog, and it's got some interesting pictures and some of our stories, some of the things that I relayed even today, and a new blog that's coming out about the Nurture Shock, Plays Well with Others chapter. Wonderful. Soon. Wonderful. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. We've been talking about Ava's Triumph, and we've been talking about a lot of other things, too, with our guest, Linda Wu. Linda, thanks so much for being with us. Thank you so much for your questions. Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Jane O'Connor. She'll be here to celebrate Good Job, George. That's the next episode of the show. Want to thank the folks who made this show so wonderful. Chris, want to start by thanking our guest, Linda Wu. Please be sure to check out Ava's Triumph. Also want to thank our sponsors, Jennifer Swanson, The Secret Science of Sports, and also The Adventures of Harry and Friends, written by Sarah Tucker. Hey, our team deserves a big round of applause and thanks. Rory Grady, Fatima Khan, Skylar Strauss. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.